This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. I'm here with a dear friend that I've known for quite a few years. I didn't travel as much with you the last time you were moving around the country working on your topic, but we have Paul Morinville, who's the executive director of Spark US Innovation. Paul, welcome to Business Decoded.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
So you are the founder and executive director of this organization, which focuses on the patent part of the entrepreneurship piece. Tell us about the organization.
So Spark Innovation focuses mostly on tech startups and critical emerging tech, and which is my background. And then the role of China. I spent a couple of years licensing patents inside China, and the threat to national security by the destruction of our patent system and what that means to starting up new technology.
Well, and I spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs, and this part of their business, they might not know well. Getting a patent, having a good product, having a good idea is so critically important. But before we speak about what that impact is, and your whole role, Paul, from my understanding, is really to make sure that there is an opportunity for these entrepreneurs to benefit from what they've created. Like, that's the whole goal, isn't it?
That is the goal. So, a patent is viewed by the founders as more of a natural right. And they actually created an exclusive right to it in the Constitution, which is the very essence of a private property right. And that allows them for you to collateralize that patent to attract investment. And that's the reason that the United States became the technology leader on this planet. It's the reason, because in any property rights system, the property itself can be used to attract capital. So if you have a great idea of a new product and you can get a patent, then you can convince people that there's a market here. You can use that patent like you'd use a deed to your house to attract investment.
And Paul, so just to set this up for our audience, you're not an attorney, right?
No, you're not.
You are a business leader and entrepreneur. You have over 9 issued patents, 30 plus pending patents. But tell me about your career journey first before we dig into more details on the policy side of patents. So you're born in California, grew up in Minnesota. What was your journey like? And you're one of 6, the oldest of 6 kids. Tell me about your business journey.
So I was probably... I was born into tech. My dad was an engineer at Fairchild in California. Wow. And on the team that put the first integrated circuit into mass production.
Fairchild was a big deal back in those days. They're what launched in Silicon Valley, right?
That's exactly right. And he actually was offered his second level boss was Noyce, one of the founders of Intel.
Nice.
And he was actually offered a job at Intel very early, but turned it down because he had 4 kids. It was too risky to go to a startup. A little while later, he got laid off, and he did the startup stuff, the startup stuff in the Santa Clara Valley at the time, which got renamed the Silicon Valley, much to my mother's chagrin. But and literally to her dying day, she corrected me. If I said Silicon Valley, she would correct me and call it Santa Clara Valley. But he thought we need to be raised in Minnesota, so he moved us to the Canadian border, International Falls, Minnesota, where most of my growing up was. I got kicked out of high school, joined the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps 5 years, took college classes, never did get a degree. And I ended up working in car dealerships and odd jobs. I answered an ad in a newspaper in Florida in 1993 that said, "The worst job you'll ever have." And all I could think of was beat the Marine Corps. So I ended up, my boss got hired at Dell about a year or two later, and he hired me at Dell. And I ended up in executive offices at the corporate. I invented some stuff while I was at Dell. Didn't apply to Dell's business, so they said, "Hey, that's a great invention. Here's a couple $1 million. Go do a startup."
Wow.
Left on April 3rd, 2000, right as the bubble was collapsing. So they actually withdrew that agreement. And I floundered for a while doing executive recruiting and working on my patents. And in 2013, or actually by about 2010, I was working with Purdue University to commercialize my inventions. And in 2013, my investors came and said, they just wiped out the patent system. We can't invest. Your patents are no longer assets to collateralize, so we're out. And
so what changed, Paul? Like what changed in that period of time that wiped out our patent system?
So there was actually the first thing that really changed the very nature of what a patent is. Prior to that, it was a private property right, just like your house. And if somebody trespassed, the courts kicked them off. So they would enjoin any infringers. That was the default decision. There was a case called eBay versus Merc Exchange in 2006. And that case changed the nature of injunctions. What they created was a 4-factor test. One of those factors is irreparable harm. So you have to prove that you're irreparably harmed in order to get an injunction now. Well, the problem with that is that when you are starting up a company, you've got a brand new technology. If that starts taking off, big companies know it. And you don't have the resources or the market power, you're fighting your way through. Prior to 2006, they knew if they stole it, you were getting an injunction. Right. They were going to be stopped. So everything they invested in it go away. That caused them to do things like joint ventures, right, to acquire companies, to design around, it drove innovation, just the fact that they could get stopped. eBay's irreparable harm changed their thinking because now they can take your invention, steal it, massively commercialize it, run you out of business, and your investors or you will end up with the patent, and you don't have a product.
Podcasts are so popular, even monkeys are doing it.
75% of Americans listen to podcasts monthly. That's 210 million people in the United States alone. And yes, podcasts are profitable. Joe Rogan is making $30 million per year. Your content, your knowledge is worth sharing. Don't just dream it, do it. Visit andycostafilms.com/podcast and turn your content into leaks.
If you don't have a product on the market, you're not irreparably harmed. Right. You're not losing market share. It'll all get settled with money. So they don't grant injunctions. So they created an environment where large corporations could steal from small guys, and were incented to do it because, if you can ever get a lawyer and you can ever fight them out in court, they'll pay what they would have to pay if they did a license anyway.
Right.
So that changed it in 2006. And there's this whole narrative about patent trolls, these bad people who buy patents and enforce them, which really are the investors in startups. They end up a bunch of rich guys owning patents, and they're trying to get their investment back, so they sue these big companies. That created a huge amount of investor patent infringement cases because they stole technology and ran these companies out of business.
Right.
Because of that, they passed the America Invents Act, which I might say is pretty inaptly made. And that was in 2011. In 2012, it went into effect. And what they did is they created what's called the Patent Trial and Appeal Board. This is an administrative tribunal inside the patent office where their sole purpose is to invalidate the patents the patent office just issued.
Right.
And they do it effectively. They've been invalidating 84% of the fully adjudicated patents. And they've been doing this since 2012. So you sue a big company, for patent infringement. They petition the PTAB. The PTAB takes the case, and they only look at the validity of the patent. There's all kinds of problems with that. There's all kinds of due process problems. You don't get a jury. You don't get a judge. You get a panel of government lawyers,
Right.
Who are looking for their next career and who are actually bonused more if they invalidate patents than they are if they hold them valid.
Gee.
The incentive program, the incentives driving that thing drives a high invalidation rate. There are some of these judges. One, for example, a guy named Clements was a Apple attorney, a low-level Apple attorney. He became a PTAB judge. He took many cases where Apple was a party, found for Apple in I think all of them, and then went back to work for Apple at a higher position. I mean, it's a career booster. Right. It's a corrupt tribunal. And an 84% invalidation rate. That's 84%. What my investors said we can't do it.
So there are 2 points that you mentioned there that I think are important. One, if you don't have a solid patent that can be defended, your investors are not interested in investing in it because they know they can't get a return on it. And then the second part for me is, as a small business owner, and if you look at some of these companies and inventors that are creating these concepts, what encouragement do they have to create the product if they can't protect it, especially if they don't have the massive investors that are coming in to support their invention to get them through? Getting a patent is expensive. How much does it cost today to get a patent?
It depends on the technology, but I don't think you'll end up with 10 grand, but if you've got a tech invention, it could be 30 to 50 grand to get a patent.
So for someone just starting, it's not inexpensive to get a patent. And then if you get a patent and you can't protect it, then where do you go from there?
So the problem with this is people don't know it.
Right.
So I just got off the phone earlier today with a company out of Florida that has some pretty interesting tech stuff, and they wanted to talk about how to get that licensed because they have infringement now. It's not their main business; it's a side business. It's a small company, maybe 20 people, and it was enlightening to him. This is a sophisticated person in tech to learn that he's not going to be able to get anybody to even discuss a licensing agreement with him,
right? Unless
he sues them. And nobody takes licenses voluntarily. You have to sue him. When they sue, they probably will invalidate his patents.
Oh.
So he's finding out this is 2025. This problem has been around for 20 years.
Right.
And he's finding out about it now. Because we all learn in grade school about Thomas Edison and the light bulb and how that drove America and how great the patent system is, and everybody still believes it.
Right.
Until you need it and you find out it's not there.
Right. So how do we fix it, Paul? How do we get back to Thomas Edison period where we can create an invention and it help to drive the next level of innovation here in the country?
So here's what we're up against. Patents are the things of corporate power and global power. Right now, China leads in 57 of 64 technologies critical to our national security, and it's largely due to a failed patent system.
Say that again. They lead in how many?
57 of 64 technologies critical to our national security. This is a think tank out of Australia who analyzes who's leading in what, and they have 64 technologies they follow. In 2006, we led in almost all of them.
Wow.
China in none of them. 20 years later, China in 57 of 64.
Wow.
And it is largely due to the failed patent system. If you can't use a patent to attract capital to an early stage company, you can in China. I spent 2 years in China licensing patents. Their system is far superior to ours.
Really?
Ours will take 10 years, $10 million, pretty much minimum to get all the way through a patent litigation. I got all the way through the Chinese Supreme Court with $300,000 in 2.5 years.
Wow.
Foreign, they grant injunctive relief 87% of the time and almost 100% for foreigners.
So
they know.
So you're saying that a patent that is issued in China is better protected by Chinese law than patents issued in the U.S. for U.S. inventors?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. They stole our patent system.
Right.
And there's an enormous amount of influence that China has across academia, across these corporations. If they're doing business there, they have to go along with what China wants them to go along with. And there's an enormous amount of benefit they get themselves. I mean, Google's search algorithm is what made Google Google about 85% of the time. If some small inventor in Plano, Texas, comes up with a better search algorithm, they could run them out of business. Now, look what happened with AI. It just about did.
Right.
Until they jumped in. So patents are the biggest threat to these monopolies. Prior to 2006, with eBay, where they can steal it and keep it, no tech company held a monopoly for very long. Somebody came up with something better and knocked them out.
Right.
But since 2006, that's no longer the case. These tech companies get bigger and bigger and more powerful, and worse, more politically powerful.
Right.
So you're fighting on the Hill enormous political power and money that I believe is coming from, it's largely deep big tech, but it's coming from China too, I think.
Right.
And in order to win, there needs to be a lot of people talking to their congressmen. There needs to be pressure back home. This is a silent issue. If you're talking about guns or abortion, everybody back home has got an opinion on it.
Right.
If you're talking about patents, nobody understands it.
Right.
And they don't know there's a problem.
So I've been spending a lot of time with a number of inventors recently, and even more time in AI. You mentioned AI. Where do you see AI going now in our economy and in our technology?
I'm viewing it, it's like any new technology.
Right.
There's a huge number of small startup companies that come in with new tech and stuff like that. A lot of them fail. Those that don't fail consolidate, and you end up with a new set of industry players. It'll be different this time because the big companies are jumping in with AI policy that will be beneficial to them.
Gotcha.
Harmful to startups. And because we don't have a patent system, you can't patent AI. Well, you can. I mean, you might get a patent, but they're going to take it away for sure.
Right. And that's why I asked, because I can only imagine the concept of AI, like the open AI particularly, is that it's there in the marketplace, and how do you protect it?
Yeah. So, and here's, most AI algorithms are protected by trade secrets. They're buried in the bowels of these data centers. Nobody can see them. You input, it goes through those things, it comes back with something. But the way that they do it is not known.
Okay.
So if you're a little guy and you have a way of doing it that's better than what they have, and you patent it, you can use that to build your data center. But by doing that, you disclose the algorithm.
Right.
And if they simply just can take it and run you out of business, what's the point of writing a patent on AI? And so what you have is a system where nobody can build upon what somebody else builds. Yeah, they're competing with each other, and there will be competition between them, but there won't be hardly any new participants with better technology coming in because they can't protect it.
Right. So from an AI perspective, you build it, you don't patent it, you just keep it private. Sounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
You trade secret it. And everybody signs NDAs. It's behind lock and key. You do all those things to protect it as a trade secret, and it's yours, and it's perpetual.
That is really fascinating. So there's no limit on it. And when you say perpetual, it's not like it expires in a few years.
As long as it's a secret, you keep it. It's like Coke's recipe is still a secret, right? It's a trade secret.
So there was I recently saw a piece on a company called, and I think I'm pronouncing this right, Anduril. They're an AI company that's using AI for fighter planes. So they were able to beat out the major manufacturers of fighter planes to create this autonomous plane. And it's just a really fascinating concept, all AI driven. So no pilot, all AI to fly these planes and target their destinations. They're working with, I believe, countries throughout the world. But it's really fascinating as a concept, especially on the AI piece.
It's all math.
Right.
It's mostly statistics, what's next, what's likely to be next.
Right. So what's next for you? Oh, go ahead, Paul.
It is fascinating.
So what's next for you in this for pharmaceutical industry? How important is this patent piece for the pharmaceutical industry? I understand a lot of pharmaceuticals are produced overseas. So
there's a big there's a big fight right now on pharma patents driving up the cost of drugs. That's a false flag.
Okay.
I believe it's a false flag. Most of the research is done in universities and small think tanks, and if they come up with a new drug, they patent it, but they also go to the FDA and they get approval. And if you remember what happened to the EpiPen,
yes,
how the price skyrocketed,
right?
Well, the woman that was running the page on, let me explain the page. There's an orange book. I think it's the orange book. And if you have a patented drug and it's passed FDA, it goes on the orange book, nobody can take that off except for you. And it's protected by the FDA. So it's hard to get an infringement case in or to get another drug on the market if something else is patented, because it has to go through the orange book. The orange book effectively is used by insurance companies and governments to determine, if they're going to pay for it in Medicaid and Medicare. It becomes like an access point to the market. I'm giving a layman's description of it. There's a lot more to it, and I'm not exactly right on every point, but that's effectively how it works. So in the EpiPen, the woman running that page didn't allow any other injectables that would compete with it, not even if it violated a patent. Then they were starting to get lawsuits by these companies that say, mine doesn't violate that patent, but they wouldn't let it on. Then she left. She became CEO of EpiPen. She had an exclusive market, and she drove the price through the ceiling, made her a retirement.
Right.
The problem is not the patent system. The problem is in the FDA.
Okay.
And the revolving door between pharma and the FDA. The patent system is necessary for pharma if you want to develop new drugs. You have to have a barrier to entry, and not enough. The emphasis should be looking at the FDA, not the patent system on it.
Now, if I remember correctly, I spent a lot of time around the EpiPen. If I remember correctly, I think the concept was invented in our military of the EpiPen and then transitioned to commercial. And then the RVQ came out, which was a different kind of injectable for epinephrine. And then recently I saw that there's a new one, I think it's called Neffy, which is a nasal spray that resolves allergic symptoms. So that industry it looks like it's starting to change now, but you're right. The EpiPen had the majority of the market for decades.
Because of the FDA.
Right. That's interesting. Any thoughts on the new diabetes and now weight loss products? So you've got Mounjaro and quite a few other products that are leading the way in that space. And it sounds like it feels similar to what you just described in the EpiPen.
Yeah. Are you wondering if I need to use them? The show?
But they're costly. The cost of the injection is $1,000+ a month. Yeah.
I don't know enough about that.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of similars out there that you can get cheap that they're advertising, and I don't know where that comes on the patent side, or I don't have enough knowledge.
Right.
But I should be using it though.
Right. Now, Paul, you're quite unique, again, because you've worked across a lot of different technology segments, like we mentioned earlier, computer hardware and enterprise middleware and video compression software and artificial intelligence and medical devices. So your background and understanding of patents across all of those segments is just incredible. What's next for you and the organization now? Like, what legislation are you keeping your eye on? And then how is that hoping to resolve this patent issue?
So I talked about the two big problems, no injunctions and the PTAB. There's a third one called the abstract idea, which really does affect tech patents. It's complex, but basically, if you have a tech patent, they're going to knock it out as an abstract idea.
Okay.
So those three issues are big issues, and there are three bills out there that the big corporate lobby, who says they're pro patent, will tell you, and everyone, they're paying everybody to put out articles on how good they are. But effectively, those three bills codify the problems.
Right.
And the irreparable harm part of the eBay case, it codifies it. It changes some rules at the PTAB, but it doesn't address the real problems. We'll still have the same problems with the PTAB. It's not going to change anything significantly. And then the abstract idea, it codifies it too. Right. So those three bills, it's called the Patent Eligibility Restoration Act, the Prevail Act, and the Restore Act. We are opposing, but we have amendments that will fix it. And we've been on the Hill talking about those amendments. We also have another bill that similar to Rallia. Rallia was a bill by Thomas Massey and Marcy Kaptur,
right?
That restores almost all of the problems that we have in the patent system. It's a comprehensive bill that covers everything. Okay. But the problem with covering everything is they divert the fight to the wrong issues. So one thing they want to cover is whether it's first to invent or first to file. And right now we're in a first to file environment. We used to be first to invent. That means if I talk to you and you race me to the patent office, you can get my invention from me. That's where we're at now. So, but that's not a deal killer for American innovation. And it ends up diverting the conversation to that. And right. You have all these unnecessary conversations that are all apart from the real problem.
Right.
So we have another bill that we're going to be, we're arguing over the name of the bill right now. I don't care what the name is, but I got a whole team of people that's working with it. And we're supposed to have that today. And next week when Congress is back in, we'll start trying to find sponsors for that.
Right. And so when you look now at China, you mentioned that they lead 57 out of 64 technology that's critical to the U.S. Let's say we get the right legislation passed. How long will it take to reverse that trend?
Tech moves fast. And a lot of this stuff will move fast. If we have, one of the problems is a lot of that technology is being imported in the United States and you can't protect it.
Okay.
So you fix that right away and you're going to end up at least bringing money into the United States through licensing on the stuff that's all stolen so far.
Right.
But within, I think, 10 years, we'll be right back on top.
Okay.
China, 2 years in China's a corrupt system. And if you get on the wrong side of politics in China, you're not going anywhere. They'll shut your company down.
Right.
So there are systemic problems in China. And if you get too big, nobody wants a big company in China. They want to be just enough that they can make enough money that they stay out of the CCP spotlight. Because when they do, they're going to maw you.
Right.
They did with Ma on
Alibaba, right? Yeah.
Yeah, on Alibaba. So I think there's systemic problems in China that we would easily overcome with our free market systems. And they got to fix the patent system. I think 10 years, it reverses.
Right. Okay. That seems like a fair amount of time, but it sounds like we need to do something sooner rather than later in order to push it in the right direction.
So let me go back to Fairchild.
Okay.
So Fairchild started the Silicon Valley, and all kinds of startups popped out of Fairchild. They put the first integrated circuit into mass production, the first chip.
Right.
Intel came from that, but my dad worked at half a dozen companies that were sprung off from Fairchild. And what happens in that is it's like a petri dish. You develop know-how and know not how. You develop capital, but you amass a whole bunch of people in one little area where they can, they got the money, they've got the resources, they got the knowledge to make things happen. And that's why the Silicon Valley has been so hard to unseat. That's why it's been there since then. But that's now Shenzhen.
Right.
So we are losing that petri dish to China. And if we don't get on top of this now, we may not take it back for a generation.
Right.
If we wait 10 years, then we'll be speaking Chinese.
Wow. Well, Paul, I've known you for a while, and I admire what you've done in your professional and business career. You've lived across the country. You're currently living in Washington, D.C. with still strong roots here in Texas. But I admire what you've done and your focus on understanding technology and trying to figure out how we can still be the most innovative place in the world. So I appreciate all of your hard work. Now, I have to ask you about your truck. So I know that you have probably a few vehicles, but you've got a truck that I've seen that is a workhorse, right? I think you mentioned it has over 300,000 miles on it.
Does now, yeah. Yeah, it's been parked at my sister's house in Texarkana for a little while, but I was spending I was doing 80,000 miles a year for a while, going to inventor clubs and political meetings and anywhere I could, I spent two years just on the road. And I had a pickup camper in that pickup, and it was all over the country.
Well, and that's probably worth noting as we close. You actually fundamentally believe in entrepreneurship and invention. So you were traveling, you committed yourself to traveling any and everywhere to help entrepreneurs figure out how they can protect their patent and their hard work, right?
Yep. I sold my retirement to do it.
Yep.
Dumped my 401k. I burned everything I had from this.
I love it.
First 4 years that I was founding this. So this is, for me, this is, you go to your grave with nothing, except your stories.
Right.
And this is a story I'll go to my grave with. And I want this country I want my grandchildren to have a patent system. You look at me and you think, man, there's no way you can have grandchildren, but I actually have 8.
I love it. Hey, Paul, I appreciate you coming on the program and sharing how we can continue to make inventions and patents in our system that much stronger. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.